Welcome to the Republic Brothers Podcast. We're cutting through the noise, defending the truth. I'm Mike, joined by my brother Matt, and we break down the issues that matter most to conservatives. Today we're talking about the continued government shutdown, the FBI spying on Republicans, and the Israel and Hamas peace deal. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. Well, Matt, the government shutdown continues. It's now been 8 days, and both sides are still holding steady. I think we're so divided on so many issues these days that both sides are too stubborn to move. No one wants to take a metaphorical L, and it's causing a lot of people to work with no pay. We're seeing delays and cancellations at airports, among other things. I still think it could be a while before we see a resolution, but after today, the vote is getting closer to the 60 votes needed.
Yeah, 60 votes needed. On October 8th, they voted again. The Republican continuing resolution fails with a 54 to 45 vote. No senators changing their vote from the last time. House Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters he would not call back the House to vote on a separate bill to pay military members. He said the House is done, the ball is in the court of the Senate. 54 votes means you still need to convince 6 more Democrats to move to the other side. I can't imagine we're close to that. It doesn't seem like either side is willing to move. I don't think public sentiment has gotten to a point where one side is getting hammered for this, so there's no incentive for either side to move yet.
Yeah, 54 votes is good, but like you said, we're still 6 votes away, and who's to say that one of the Republicans won't flip? I believe we saw already today that Marjorie Taylor Greene flipped over now.
Yeah, and if you make any changes to the bill, there's a good chance you lose even more Republicans. Making concessions might get you more Democrats, but Republicans are more than willing to go against their own party if they feel it's best for their constituency.
Yeah, I don't like the part about them not having a separate bill to pay the military members. I'm a big supporter of the military, and I would like to see them get paid. I don't like seeing anyone go right now without being paid. I don't like that at all. But like I said before, nobody wants to take a metaphorical L on this. And nobody wants to seem like they got strong-armed or like they're getting pushed around.
Yeah, and Democrats are very good at falling in line, if you will. When leadership says we vote a certain way, just about everyone outside of Senator Fetterman seems to step in line. It is one of the few admirable characteristics of the Democrat Party, I think. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, you do have to say that they're loyal to a fault.
Yeah, and we just don't have that on the Republican side. We've seen time and time again some Republicans, enough to have a significant amount of power over what is passed. They are willing to wield that power if they feel it's in the best interest of the people voting for them. Republicans and Democrats alike are mostly only worried about being reelected. Republicans seem to have a more narrow view. They seem to be less concerned with what people outside of their own district thinks of them.
Well, moving on from there, I did want to talk to you about Jay Jones's text messages. Democratic candidate for Virginia Attorney General Jay Jones canceled a fundraiser he had scheduled for Thursday night. He's facing major backlash over some text messages that he sent back in 2022. It seems Jones's campaign may be in crisis mode. To their credit, fellow Virginia Democrats condemned the violent rhetoric. However, they dropped the ball at the 1-yard line when they stopped short of calling for Jones to exit the race. Jones was at a funeral with one of his political opponents. Afterwards, in some text messages he sent, saying, 3 people, 2 bullets, Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. He was referring to Todd Gilbert, who was the Virginia House Speaker. Jones added in his text exchange, quote, spoiler, put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time. He then later said that Gilbert and his wife were raising little fascists. Now, this comes at a time when tensions are high after the assassination of Charlie Kirk just a month ago. My opinion on this is violent words precede violent acts. There's a percentage that's way too high of Democrats that believe violence is okay, and it's disgusting. And the left blames the right of hate speech and violent rhetoric. Imagine a Republican said this. It'd be all over every news station for weeks. This is exactly the violent rhetoric that leads to violent action. Who else has Jay Jones made these comments to? Who else has he made these comments about? Imagine if Jones gets elected and he's the Attorney General of Virginia. He'd have the power to go after his political opponents, and after these texts have come out, I would not put it past him to abuse that power.
Well, those texts he sent show something I've brought up on this podcast. He's comparing a democratically elected Republican to Hitler, saying he's worse than Hitler. I don't think I need to remind people what Hitler did. It continues a trend. You're right. Too many Democrats believe political violence is okay if it benefits them. And you're also right that if it went the other way, they would be outraged.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's if enough people say this kind of thing enough times, somebody's going to hear it and be like, oh, okay, well, I have the chance to go back and rewrite history here. It's disgusting. It's vile. I understand that people make mistakes. I'm sure a lot of people have said things that in the heat of the moment they regret, or they felt very strongly about something and they were a little riled up and they said something and it wasn't right and they crossed a line. And in this case, Jay Jones crossed a line. I'm not saying that people don't make mistakes. He made a mistake, but I also think when you make a mistake, there are consequences to your actions, just like we discussed on the last podcast. He made a mistake, but now he has to deal with the consequences. You should not be able to continue in this race after calling someone's children fascists and discussing a political opponent and his wife and children. Like, say whatever you want about the guy, leave his wife and children out of it. I mean, there were so many lines that were crossed here. This is crazy.
And how you respond after you've crossed that line is important. Has he dropped out of the race, or did he even apologize?
Now, Jay Jones has apologized and taken full responsibility for the text. I say that loosely because I don't feel like he's taken any responsibility for it at all. You're not taking responsibility for it if you just merely say, oh, I'm sorry for what I said. Taking responsibility is suffering the consequences.
Well, with where some people are mentally, I'm at least glad he apologized. I wonder how badly this will hurt him when it comes time for the election. This doesn't seem like a small mistake. He never said anything about it after he did it. He just continued on. So I would imagine he did feel that way at the time. I'm curious if he's really sorry for what he did, or if this was a sorry you noticed and take it easy on me type of apology.
In my opinion, this was more of a I'm sorry I got caught, because if you read the whole text exchange, the person he was talking to was saying, hey, you're making me uncomfortable. I don't like the things that you're saying. Not verbatim, but that was the gist of the conversation with the other person.
Well, yeah, if somebody responds like that, you should be doing some internal reflection on what you just said to determine if it's as vile as it was.
And I don't think that it's going to affect him in his race. Now, his opponents are taking full advantage of it. They've already come out with ads about it. And like I said, they're calling for him to drop out of the race. But I don't think it's going to actually affect the election at all. People are still going to vote for this guy.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people do simply look at the letter next to the name of who they're voting for. And that's on both sides, but especially Democrats. I don't know that there's a mistake anyone could make that they wouldn't eventually forgive. We see how they're treating illegal immigrants. We see how they respond when someone murders someone. They do very much seem pro-criminal, in my opinion. It wouldn't be a massive surprise to me if it didn't hurt him much, if at all.
All right. Anyway, we'll see where that leads. But like I said, I don't think it's going to have any effect on his race. Like I said, people are still going to vote for this guy, and there's people out there that don't see anything wrong with what he said. But aside from that, Matt, tell us a little bit about Arctic frost.
Yeah, Mike, I'm curious what you're going to think of this. FBI Director Kash Patel on Monday said the Bureau uncovered proof that phone records were seized for political purposes and pledged the FBI will never be weaponized again. It turns out during an inquiry into the aftermath of the 2020 election, the FBI spied on 8 Senate Republicans and 1 House Republican. This all started after the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago. The FBI did find phone records. Now, they didn't have access to what was said in those calls. They just know who called who and when. I'm curious what you think of this, because to me, it seems the Obama and then after Trump, the Biden administrations had no problem with spying on their political opponents. We know Obama spied on Trump during the campaign, and now we know Biden spied on Republicans. It seems like corruption to me, and Republicans are now saying that Arctic Frost was a coordinated effort to target President Trump and his political allies, including Turning Point USA. How would the left react if this story was flipped the other way around?
Well, I think we both know exactly how they'd react. They'd be flipping out and screaming from the rooftops that the Republicans are dirty cheaters. That's basically what this is. They need any leg up they can get. They knew from the jump that Joe Biden should not have been president. He was not fit to lead this country. And why they even chose to parade him out on a debate stage is beyond me. They knew they needed a leg up, and this is how they tried to get it.
Well, if you weren't democratically elected, but you still controlled the country, why on earth would you want to give that up? That's why they ran him again. It wasn't really Joe Biden's decision, in my opinion. It was Joe Biden and other people at the White House on the staff. They saw an opportunity to stay in power and keep their power. Why give that up? They weren't going to be able to get the power on their own, so why not just try again to prop up Joe Biden, who clearly wasn't capable of running, let alone running the country?
Well, and I think they knew at the time that Joe Biden was 1-0 against Trump. So why not try to get him out there again and try and go 2-0? Once it became clear after that debate they had to do a complete 180, and that's how we ended up with Kamala.
And now Donald Trump is 2-0 against women.
It's unfortunate we won't be able to see him run again to see if he could beat whoever they throw up next. I would love to see a debate with Donald Trump and Gavin Newsom. I don't know about you, but that would have really been at the top of my debate list.
I would like to see Newsom versus any Republican. California is a disaster. He's going to get torched by about 90% of Republicans. If that debater was Trump, I would be okay with that. I would like to see the memes and the trolling of Trump 2028 continue. He's not running again. We know that. But why not make Democrats think that he's considering it? Let them spend their time and energy ranting about that, and then we can focus on the other things that actually matter.
I think you're right. I would love to keep seeing the Trump 2028 merchandise. That really aggravates some people.
It really gets under their skin, and they shout from the rooftops that we're undermining democracy, but which side just spied on their opponents?
Exactly.
This is now a second Trump term. Biden had 4 years in office. If Trump spied on any Democrats, don't you think the Biden Department of Justice or FBI would have come out and said Trump was spying on people?
Well, he didn't have time to spy on anybody. He was too busy defending himself in court.
Very true.
Anyway, enough on that. Let's move on to some other news. So just a couple weeks ago, Trump designated Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. Now, a new report from Capital Research Center details how billionaire George Soros's Open Society Foundations has given more than $80 million to groups tied to terrorism or extreme violence. Open Society has sent millions to U.S.-based organizations that engage in actions defined as domestic terrorism by the FBI. This includes Ruckus Society, which has trained activists in property destruction and sabotage during the 2020 riots. Oh, but I forgot, all those protests were mostly peaceful. One of the other groups produced a pro-Hamas guide that glorifies the October 7th attacks in Israel. Where has all the common sense gone? Did we run out? Were some people not there when we passed it out? We literally have a billionaire donating money to all these different places in order to basically build these, I want to say armies, but that's not the right word, But basically, they're building these armies of people to go out and just create havoc, destroy whatever they can, light cars on fire, and just make a mess of the cities that they're in, which makes no sense to me why you would destroy the city that you live in. But I guess these people probably aren't from the cities that they're destroying. They're just out there taking the money and burning down everything they can.
Well, if you had law and order, no sensible individual would agree to go burn something down. If you knew you were going to go to jail and potentially prison for the violence you did in exchange for a paycheck, you wouldn't do it. I know some people don't like George Soros or don't think he's very smart. I think George Soros is an absolute genius. Before he hired all these people to go protest and riot, he spent a lot of money to get people elected and appointed as judges. What the law says doesn't matter if you don't enforce the law. He found a way around rewriting legislation. Just get people in power who will ignore it. For that, he is a genius, and now that he has that in some of these places, you can send people out to go riot. If they get arrested for vandalism or destruction of property, in places like New York City, cashless bail, they're out after a couple hours. No harm, no foul. They can continue protesting.
Yeah, and it's basically pawns and patsies for hire. This guy's gone out and he's just using his pocketbook to get a bunch of morons to do whatever he wants.
Well, unfortunately, some of those morons are college educated. Richard Feynman has a pretty famous quote, "Never confuse education with intelligence. You can have a PhD and still be an idiot." That is spot on. Some of these people are college educated, but they learned how to take a test, not how to live in the real world. And for that reason, if someone offered you a decent amount of money for your day, for you to just go stand around with a sign and chant a couple slogans, it's an easy way to make money, right?
I just can't imagine the type of person that would accept money to go destroy a bunch of stuff. Like if somebody came up to me and was like, "Hey, I want you to go take these bricks and just go throw them through a bunch of windows and I'll bail you out of jail." It's not even worth my time to entertain that.
Well, you're a normal person with a normal job, and you are spot on that these people are most of the time not from the place they're protesting and rioting. How does it improve your life if you go burn down the local business? It doesn't. It reduces supply of whatever you just burnt down, meaning things are going to be more expensive.
What doesn't make sense to me with the 2020 riots is why you would want to go out and destroy these cities and then have to rebuild them. Where do you think they're getting the money to rebuild these places? You're either A, putting people out of business and causing harm to people who did nothing wrong, or they're using your tax money to rebuild the cities.
And in a lot of those cases, they're actually minority-owned businesses, which the protesters claim in a lot of cases that they're trying to help. Their actions are the opposite, though.
Yeah, you're not helping anyone. You're destroying lives. And none of the people that you're trying to get the attention of are there. You're not hurting them at all. They're just sitting there watching on TV, laughing at you, especially when they see the police come in and somebody get maced or something. We're laughing at you. Everyone is laughing at you.
But you know who's laughing at America, right? The Chinese, the Iranians.
Yeah. Well, anyway, after talking about George Soros and his shenanigans, one of the things I said before was that he created a group that produced a pro-Hamas guide. So that kind of leads us into our next thing. Donald Trump posted on Truth Social today, October 8th at 6:51 p.m., saying, quote, "I am very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, all surrounding nations, and the United States of America. And we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who worked with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen. Blessed are the peacemakers." Now, before we get into too many more of these details, I keep seeing this clip of this poor kid that has been a hostage now for 2 years. He was there on October 7th and was taken, and you can tell from the pictures of this kid that he has not been getting fed enough. And the pictures of this poor kid living in this cave is heartbreaking. What exactly do we know about what's going on here, Matt?
We don't have exact details on it. Trump has announced that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of that peace plan. In that first phase, all the hostages would be released, and Trump said very soon, and Israel and Hamas would agree to a line which Israel would withdraw its military to. This all comes 2 years after the terrorist attack in Israel. I don't know how you look at this, Mike. In my opinion, I'll believe it when I see it. I still struggle to believe Hamas would give up power. This may be part of their plan just to string things along. When the hostages are released, I'll be happy. I'd like to see it end, but you're negotiating with terrorists and you don't know how it will truly go.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping that these hostages get returned. My concern is with Hamas giving up power. I don't think that they're going to give up power so easily. I think, like you said, they're going to drag their feet and they're going to find some little thing that they can break this whole thing down with. But if they do, it seems that there could be some very aggressive attack being planned behind the scenes if they decide not to move forward with this.
Well, I don't think there would be. At this point, Hamas is pretty weak. I don't know how familiar you are with the events of the last couple years in the Middle East, but most of the military backers for Hamas are devastated. Israel took out a lot of Hezbollah. Iran has been decimated. The Houthis aren't really capable of generating that much force far away from Yemen. They don't have the military backing. They do still have the political backing from other Arab nations.
So if I remember seeing correctly, it's Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt. Those are the main people that are backing Hamas, and we need those three to step in and help get this resolved.
Yes, Hamas knows those are three important allies. If those allies decided that Hamas had to take the deal or they would lose that support, then I do think Hamas would take it. We've seen how difficult it can be to get one side to move. What I would be curious about is phases 2 or more. How do you rebuild Gaza? And how do you ensure that when you send in aid to this territory, it's not used by the terrorists to just rebuild more tunnels or military infrastructure under hospitals, for example? How do you ensure that doesn't happen again and Hamas doesn't rise to power again?
Yeah, I think that's the thing that most people are afraid of, and I don't know that there's any way you can be certain of that. I mean, how do we know that Hamas isn't going to cave, just give in, give the hostages back, agree to whatever happens, and then they spend the next year or 2 or 5 or whatever rebuilding?
Does signing this deal for Hamas, Mike, in your opinion, change how the members of Hamas are going to think overnight? They've wanted the destruction of Israel for a long time. Is that going to be different because they said that they will stop trying to destroy Israel?
I don't think it's going to change their opinion overnight. They have their mindset, and I don't see their mindset changing. But like we know at this point, they are weak. And I think that they would try to rebuild and possibly come back at this thing again in a different way. But at the end of the day, whether they decide to do that or not, I, at this point, would really just like to see the hostages returned. It would be nice for President Trump to be able to put this on his resume that he finally ended this whole thing.
Yes, and it would also turn some of the attention back to some of the other conflicts in the world if we could end this one. I just fear that, as Trump said, these are conflicts that have lasted hundreds of years. I am afraid it will end temporarily, but eventually it will happen again. There's a lot of hatred for Israel. I would not be shocked if 10 to 20 years from now, something kind of similar to October 7th happened. And because of how much hatred there is for Israel around the world, the moment Israel sees something like October 7th starting to shape up again, they're going to take very strong, very decisive action. Most Western countries see long-term as the next election in 2 to 4 years. Israel is remarkably good at looking hundreds of years out. Their government is very focused on keeping the Jewish population alive and thriving. That's why, despite only having 8 million people, they have such a strong military. They know they may have to fight for their life, and they don't ever want to be seen as weak, which might prompt an attack from somebody in the region.
True, but hopefully we can get this whole thing over with, and we can return the hostages, and we can at least have some peace for a little while.
I hope to see it, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, enough about Israel and Hamas. Hopefully we'll see some more of this deal take shape the next time we record, and we can kind of go over things again. Moving on to our next topic. Sophie Rosk has been sentenced to just over 8 years in prison. Now, you might not know who that is, because when Sophie was arrested, his name was Nicholas. Nicholas Rosk was arrested in June 2022 near Brett Kavanaugh's home in Maryland. Nicholas had a pistol, among other weapons, and later pled guilty to attempting to kill the Supreme Court justice. The craziest thing about all of this was the judge's reasoning for the light sentence, citing Rosk's decision to turn himself in, his lack of criminal record, and Rosk's transgender identity and potential issues related to prison placement. The Justice Department wanted Rosk in prison for 30 years. This light sentence sparked outrage, and now Senator Ted Cruz has accused the judge of political bias. My question is, how long would this judge have given Nicholas Rosk if he was charged with murder and not just attempted murder?
Well, I could see why you would get leniency for turning yourself in and not having any criminal record. But the judge citing someone's transgender identity and the issue with placing them in prison, in my opinion, there is no issue related to prison placement. He's a man. He was born a man. He will always be a man. There is no changing that.
He could tell me until he's blue in the face that he's felt like he's been a woman forever, but I'll sit right there and say, you're lying, dude. You're full of crap.
Is this transition just something to gain sympathy? From the far left perspective, the more marginalized you are, the more leniency they'll give you. Was Nicholas Rosk, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is still his legal name, was this decision just to try and gain sympathy?
Nicholas is still his legal name. And this kind of goes back to what we said before about the whole mental health thing. Anybody that's willing to go kill someone is obviously not all there in the head. There's something that's not right. Some wires are crossed. All the lights are not on in the house.
Yeah, but I've said this before. Mental illness is still not a reason to commit crimes. We have to stop using that excuse. If somebody's struggling mentally, we should help them. But if you commit a crime, you have to suffer the consequences.
Yeah, exactly. Your actions have consequences. And if you're going to go out and try to kill someone, in my opinion, attempted murder should be the same sentence as murder. The end result in your head was the same. You went out and attempted to do something. Just because you didn't complete it or it didn't work out doesn't mean that you weren't going to do it. Like, this is one of those things where I don't think that the attempted part should make your sentence any less.
Especially in a case like that where it's premeditated. This was an intentional targeting of somebody.
Yeah, and obviously of someone that this person did not agree with.
Yeah, very fair. And maybe I'd feel a little differently if this was something like the Mark Sanchez incident where he was intoxicated, didn't really know what he was doing. Now, Mark Sanchez wasn't trying to kill anybody, but he was intoxicated and he started attacking someone and they feared for their life. If in that instance they found that at the time he was trying to kill someone, which he wasn't, then I might feel a little differently. Intentions have to matter regardless of whether you're mentally ill or not.
Yeah, and in this case, the intent to kill was there. It was attempted murder. He just wasn't successful. But now the Department of Justice says, we want 30 years, and he walks away with 8? How does that make sense?
Well, and there's every chance he doesn't actually serve 8 years, right? You worked in law enforcement at jails. How much time do you think he would actually end up serving? Especially good behavior can reduce your sentence, right?
Yeah, so right off the bat, from good behavior, you're going to serve about 2/3 of the time you're actually sentenced to. On top of that, when you go to prison, if you get a job and you work, it's 1-to-1 in terms of days. For every day you work, that's another day that comes off of your sentence. So the fact that he's getting 8 years, he's realistically only going to serve 5.5, and then he goes to prison, probably going to be laid up in some cush prison, get a job doing something, and probably realistically only end up serving 4.5 years.
Wow, that's crazy. 4.5 years. Is that going to change his opinion on murder and attempting it? I'm not sure.
No, I don't think so either. And there's some cases where I don't think there's anything you can do. Like, what are the chances this person goes to prison for 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, or even let's say that they get in trouble while they're in prison and they end up serving 6 or 7 years and then get parole. What are the chances this person gets out and then something happens later in their life that they don't agree with, somebody says something they don't like, and they don't try to do it again?
Well, I think we just kind of have to hope they leave the news off at that point.
Yeah, and we just had this conversation about Hamas and if their opinion on Israel would change overnight. And we both agreed, no, it would not change overnight. So is this person's opinion going to change overnight? No. He's going to get out of prison, most likely still think in his head that what he did wasn't that bad or that it was okay. Or if maybe he gets into a text exchange with somebody who starts making jokes about how the 3 worst people in a room and this person gets both bullets, maybe that happens again and this kid goes, oh, well, no, I got to go take this person out.
Yeah, very good point. Touches on our previous conversation.
Yeah, and it just keeps going back to the mental health thing that we talk about. If something's not right and all the lights aren't on in the house and you need help, you need to go get help. There is zero excuse to go out and do something like this, to try to kill somebody or hurt someone else and destroy someone else's life. If you need help, go get help.
Completely agree. Time is ticking down on us, and I was curious if you saw all the money Hyundai tried to shower Trump with to avoid tariffs on the auto industry.
I did not see that.
I found this quite funny. Hyundai Motor Group donated $1 million to Trump's inauguration and pledged originally $21 billion in investment in the U.S., which they later upped by $5 billion, only for the Fed to turn around and hit them with the tariffs. When Trump's tariffs came out in April, there was no carve-out for Hyundai. And then the Trump administration raided their Atlanta factory and found they had hundreds of illegal immigrants working in the factory. This was the largest single-site enforcement in Homeland Security investigations history. Over 300 South Korean immigrants detained, most of which at this point have been deported. Does this make you think Trump doesn't really play favorites? After all, it's a pretty big win that he got a foreign company to commit to $26 billion in investment in the country. He still turned around and threw the tariffs on them, just like he did everybody else.
Yeah, and I would like to point out here that you said they got 300 Korean. This is not a Latino thing. If you are in this country illegally, you will be found and you will be deported, and that's exactly how it should be.
When I saw that they got those 300 people, I always go back to this. These are illegal immigrants taking jobs from Americans. You cannot tell me Korean people aren't smart. I would not believe that. They are very smart. They are very educated. These are jobs that potentially could have gone to Americans. And even if you didn't have the Americans to fill those jobs, that would reduce supply for those positions, and therefore Americans would get paid more.
Yeah, there's jobs out there that are being taken. Why would you want somebody who's not supposed to be here to have a job that could go to somebody else who deserves it? Just like I said on the last podcast, this is the greatest country in the world. If you don't believe it, then why is everyone trying to come here? Why does everyone want to be here?
Well, and you hear them say that these immigrants are just doing the jobs that Americans don't want. Americans like money. Money makes life a little easier. It makes decision-making easier. I don't buy the argument that they're doing the jobs we don't want. You're a father to 3 children. You have a wife at home. If you had to go work a very hard job that was difficult on the human body for your family, you would go do it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Most Americans, in my opinion, are that way. Humans are very good at surviving. We aren't great at long-term planning, but we can adapt. And if that means you got to work 2 jobs and one of them's a very difficult one, Americans will do it. We are hardworking people, so they are taking jobs from Americans.
Yeah, and I can't stand the argument of people saying, oh, well, why don't you get out there and do that job then if you don't want the illegal immigrants to do it? And it's like, okay, so you want the illegal immigrants to do the jobs that we don't want to do. Why exactly? So you can pay them less?
And they get outraged when you deport the slave labor who work for pennies. We saw that with that pot farm in California where they were outraged that the children were being taken off the farm. It was quite literally slave labor. They were working for pennies on the dollar. The left was outraged that we would deport people who are doing farming because they were cheap labor. We hear them all the time say they don't like it that we're getting rid of the cheap labor. They would rather pay somebody illegal to do it than an American because it's cheaper.
All right, so we're running low on time here. I want to get to a little blind ranking thing just for fun here. So I'm going to give you a list of 5 U.S. political figures, and you're going to rank them from 1 to 5 without knowing who comes next. Sound good?
Oh, boy.
All right, so here we go. So our first one on the board is Gavin Newsom.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Especially when you don't know who comes next.
Yeah, my instinct says 3. I'm just curious if you're going to throw some wild names at me here. I'm going to go 3.
Okay, so we're going to go with Gavin Newsom at 3. All right, so next up is AOC.
Oh, boy.
I mean, you have to go lower, right? Like,
yeah. That's a tough one. I'm debating 4 and 5. I think I'm going to go 4. I still feel like you're going to have a name on that list that's going to shock me.
All right, you ready to lock that in, number 4?
Yep, 4.
All right, number 4 for AOC. All right, up next, J.D. Vance.
That's a much better option. That's a 1 or 2 for sure. As far as political figures go, I like J.D. I'm going 1.
Okay, we're going to go J.D. Vance at number 1. All right, I like it. All right, next. I'm going to throw you a little curveball here. Zoran Mamdani.
5. Easy.
That was a quick one.
Kami.
All right, so you have the
Kami Mamdani. Kami Mamdani.
You have the number 2 spot left. You ready to hear who it is?
Go for it.
Donald J. Trump.
Nailed it. 5 for 5.
All right, so we got Mamdani at 5, AOC at 4, Newsom at 3, Trump at 2, and J.D. Vance at 1. You like that ranking?
Perfect list. Could not have done that better.
Yep, I think you nailed it. All right, Matt. Well, that was a great way to end the podcast. That's it for this episode of the Republic Brothers podcast. Here's the recap from today. The government shutdown still continues. Jay Jones got caught with his metaphorical pants down. And Biden's FBI likes to spy on Republicans. Lastly, Israel and Hamas are working towards a peace deal. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow the Republic Brothers podcast on Facebook, Instagram, X, Truth Social, and TikTok. Leave us a rating and share this episode with a friend. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.